Hey guys, it's Christy and I am here to do my Alphabethon reading wrap-up for the month of July, which was to try to read through the alphabet. Spoiler alert, I just did it out of order, so I'm just going to tell you, Oreo's going to be fresh in the back because that's what he does. I'm going to tell you if I read the book that I picked, if not, what book I did read, and then how I read it, so like on my Kindle, a physical book, or an audiobook, etc. So A, I read what I picked, Anya's Ghost, and I read it on my Kindle. B, I read Britt Marie Was Here, I read it, and that was the one that I picked, and I read it physically. C, I read Check Please, and I read it on my iPad because it's a graphic novel. For D, I originally picked The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, but I decided to listen to Don't Date Rosa Santos instead. For E, I originally put that I wanted to listen to Every Day on Path, but I changed my mind and I ended up reading Every Breath on my Kindle. For F, I listened to French Kiss. For G, I did like my fourth reread of Gemini and I listened to it on audio. For H, I picked How It Feels to Float, but I ended up changing that and saying that I wanted to read His Hideous Heart because I'm going to do a blog tour for that. But then I changed that and I ended up listening to Home Sweet Murder. For I listened to Illumini, which is what I picked. That was a re-listen too. For J, I read Juliet the Maniac on my Kindle. For K, I picked reading Keeper of the Lost Cities, but I ended up forgetting about that one and listening to The Kiss Quotient because it became available at my library and I really wanted to read that one. For L, I read Legend. I have a physical copy. For M, I read My Grandmother Wants Me to Tell You She's Sorry. I believe that's the name of it. It's really long, like title wise, and I did read that one physically. For N, I picked Nova in New York to read on my Kindle, but I ended up changing that and reading Not Hungry on my Kindle. For O, I did a combination of reading and listening to Obsidio, which was my first read of that, so I finished that trilogy and it was so good and definitely one of my favorite trilogies of all time. For P, I did read The Prince and the Dressmaker on my Kindle. For Q, I listened to Queen of Hearts. When I made my TBR, I didn't know if I was going to listen to it or physically read it, so I went with listening. For R, I originally picked Rafe Rider, and then there's a whole bunch of other words too, but then I didn't want to read that, and that I was going to read on my Kindle. But then I picked up Royce Rolls, and I read 120 pages of that, but wasn't feeling it, so I put that down, and I ended up reading the graphic novel Roller Girl on my iPad. For S, I read School Tripped, which I wanted to, and that was a physical copy. For T, I read 21 Truths About Love on my Kindle, which is what I wanted. For U, I originally picked Under the Moon, and I was going to read that on my Kindle. It was like a Catwoman story, but I decided to listen to Unearthed instead. For V, I wanted to listen to The Van Apfel Girls Are Gone, and I did do that. For W, I originally put down Well Met, which I was going to read on my Kindle, but I changed my mind and I read What Kind of Girl on my Kindle instead. For X, I originally picked Exile, which I was going to read on my Kindle. Then I changed that to X-Files Origins, which I was going to read on my Kindle because it came available at the library. But I ended up listening to XL on audio because that became available for my library and I would rather listen to that one. For Y, I ended up reading, I ended up originally picking You Asked for Perfect, which I was going to read on my Kindle. Changed my mind. And I read You Must Not Miss on my Kindle, and that was by Katrina Leto, and I heard a bunch of things about this author and how good of an author she is, so I really wanted to read that, so I borrowed it from my library. For Z, I originally picked Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Riding or something like that. I was going to listen to it, but Zeros became available for my library, so I listened to that instead, and I think that's all of them. So altogether, I read all 26 letters of the alphabet, and they're broken down into, I read 11 books physically or on my Kindle. I listened to 11 audiobooks, and I read 4 graphic novels. And if I'm not too lazy, I'm gonna put my page count over here, right above Oriole's little sleepy head. And yeah, that's how this round of Alphabethon went for me. How did you guys do? If you have a video or you just want to tell me on Twitter, let me know. Link a video down below, and I will talk to you guys later.